Hey guys, on this episode of EdTech, we're going to be talking with Rob Raspberry, Scott Tyner, and Ernie Bailey. We're going to be talking about holograms and which conventions are the best to go to for professional development. All this and more on EdTech.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is EdTech, episode 68, Holograms Vs People.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Extron Electronics.
This is EdTech, your monthly higher ed tech podcast. I'm your host, Bill O'Donnell, and this month I'm joined by Rob Raspberry. Hello, sir.
Hello.
From Drexel. How are you, sir?
Great.
I'm also joined by Ernie Bailey.
How are you doing?
Good. And of course, as always, Mr. Scott Tyner. How are you, sir?
Hey, Bill. I'm doing great. It's great to be back here again.
Yay! So, as we're starting to round down the year, we're trying to look at a couple of interesting articles. The first one comes to us from Inside Higher, not that one. It actually comes to us from Commercial Integrator, in which it is talking about what is the opportunity for, I'm sorry, I'm getting these things confused. I'm hopping and jumping. I'm terribly sorry about that. There we go. The item we were going to talk about here was, it's from AVinteractive.com. And that is, if you look at it, it's through Imperial College hosted a holographic lecture, which if you've ever looked at it or if you've seen these things, they are kind of in the realm of, the Michael Jackson Experience Tour, or if you're like me, who's more of a Ronnie James Dio tour kind of thing, in which you look at it and you can see the folks head on. They can see you. It is going to take a little getting used to. We'll probably cite some examples in a little bit, but Mr. Tyner, what do you think?
So I think that this is a natural progression from any of the typical video conferencing stuff that we do now. I'm still of the opinion that there's nothing better than getting that person there in person to talk to people. But we know, as this article talks about, that it's expensive to do that, and if this is less expensive, it gives you that opportunity. I think it's an interesting thing. I've seen some hologram-ish type stuff. I've never fully experienced this, so I'd be very curious to see what this is actually like in person.
Now, this is something for the group, really. Now, it's one of those things. I know Rutgers has actually been doing something similar to this. It's not full holographic, but it's kind of dual presence or immersive style. Now, the thing that I want to ask everyone's opinion on this one is, in terms of the traffic bandwidth, how much bandwidth do you think network-wise this is going to be requiring? And in the future, how much investment is this going to cost? Only reason is, in Rutgers' case, they did it because it was their efforts of going green and trying to reduce traffic on campus. Ironically, the traffic is now built up on the network. So, I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions on this one of how much infrastructure is this going to be requiring?
Yeah, actually, Bill, I thought of that when I read this too, and I have no idea the kind of bandwidth it's going to take, but I think that everything we do is just more and more and more bandwidth constantly. Yeah. And this is just an example of it, and it's talks about why AV people need to know about that stuff and why we need to really get along well with our networking people.
Fun side of example: many moons ago, when Tamberg was still an independent company and everything. They showed off their Telepresence T3, their Telepresence immersive suite, and I remember they asking the guys, how many codecs does this thing need, and how much network bandwidth and everything else, and the guys went, oh yeah, each one has its own. Each display had its own dedicated codec. Each display also had its own dedicated camera, and they're like, oh yeah, each one had its own T3 line. I'm like, okay. And granted, things have kind of progressed from there, but good. If you're talking about real-time presence and everything, not the trademarked thing there from Polycom, but the actual real presence and real interactivity. It's one of those things I can understand the need, the importance of it. Ernie, I'd say in your case, more than anybody, you guys would probably make use of it, but at the same time, it's also both the clarity as well as the actual, the specialty of the doctors.
Right, it's the specialty, but then we're getting into the bandwidth issues too. We had a long discussion after putting out our first NVX run with our network engineers because we about shut down the hospital's ability to send images to other locations. And just the way it all works together, and how are we going to limit it and control it? So I don't even want to go to them with something like this right now for bringing in a lecturer, so.
Now, my question to you is this, actually, if anything, the NVX is an interesting question part of this, but are you guys, as I say, you guys are relying on your current network's infrastructure, correct?
Correct.
You guys haven't gone and said, oh, here, we made a secondary network because hopefully,
we've been told we're not allowed to say that. Okay?
I can understand that.
Yeah.
As I say, since many of us probably had to deal with the days of yore of CobraNet, and if you tried putting on a regular switch, well, I hope you had good insurance, or at least a good warranty card.
Yeah.
Rob, how about you guys? Is this one of those things? Would you just bring it up to your boss and they just go, I want to go toilet?
Yeah. No, I think it's something that at this point we could bring up and mention. I mean, bandwidth. This is just another iteration of distance learning on steroids. And to be honest, what are you going to do when full VR classes, which may even exist, and they're going point to point, what are you going to do with that resource and that engine and that bandwidth? I think it's, they're just going to have to adapt. I think networks are going to have to understand that if there's an economic model that says this retains students and brings students in, then the infrastructure will adapt to it. Now the question is will this take on, or will people just say, we can just go back to regular telepresence, or we'll just go back to regular distance learning, or just regular webcasting, or like we're doing here, Zoom.
Yep.
So
Adobe Connect.
Right. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So I think it comes down to the economic model, and obviously the hologram is just sort of in its fledgling stage, and we're just seeing it, and it's sort of a neat thing. The question is can they bring it up to speed to make it, the students become as engaged? And Scott, you're right. I mean, there's nothing like face-to-face. I mean, that's just the way it is. That's the way it always, to be honest, in general will be. But if it's hard for me to see how it's going to engage the students more, except that they're seeing, an image of the instructor, which is sort of cool. But as far as bandwidth goes, the IT infrastructure, again, if it's economically feasible, they'll figure out a way to deal with it.
I figure this is where we come up with the excuse of we just run, as I say, we take like the Verizon / AT&T approach, in which we just start running fiber straight to the classroom.
Yeah.
But that's my MO for future-proofing anything. Oh, right. Future-proof the room. Okay, put in bigger conduit and put in fiber.
Yeah.
Other than that, there's not a whole lot you can do to the future.
Right.
But that's just that's me. In general, Scott's right on this one. As much as we go and say, here, we can do distance learning and everything, I think to a greater degree, we, at least in the higher ed portion, there is a bit of, when it comes to getting the information or getting a dialogue or an interaction with folks, is immersive / telepresence the way to go? Sure. If I had an unlimited budget, I would totally do that. At times, a lot of times, we actually are just happy with, hey, we got a connection. Hey, we can just go and interact and we can talk and we're good. I mean, I know a number of faculty that, they're able to do stuff via either Blackboard Collaborate or they do it via Google Hangouts or, some of them will do GoToMeeting or Zoom or things like that.
We do all of the above.
Yeah. And it's as I say, does it get you from point A to point B? Yes. Is it the Ducati Lotus ride that you were hoping for? No. But at the same time, once again, this kind of comes down to the what do the students come to the universities for?
Well, you also throw in, some of the accreditation rules, and what we get for accreditation is we have to give the same experience to distant students and as those in the same room with the professor. Right now, standard video conferencing counts as that. As one of the deals we've run into is we have to have a good high-res image from the distant site, because if the professor calls students in the local room by name, he has to call them by name at the far side also.
Yeah.
We got written up from that by a group of distant students. And the professor came back and said, well, the monitor in the big lecture hall is so small, I can't recognize who I'm talking to. So I got money to put in bigger displays.
The confidence monitors?
Yeah, bigger confidence monitors. And put in larger ones and brought them closer, so increased twice there. And now the instructor can do that, but do you get to the point where you have to have a 3D version of your instructor at the far side?
Oh, see, I want it to where they actually go in right on the whiteboard in the back.
There you go.
Yeah, the hard light. Eventually we'll get there. So next up on it is this comes to us through Commercial Integrator, and it's the value of AV industry events. And it talks about things. If you've never attended them, there's AVIX's AVEC or AV Executive Conference. There's the Total Tech Summit. In addition, there's also been, I've attended it. It's the, oh geez, my brain is hitting me right hard now. I believe it was Commercial Integrators Tech, I was going to say it was a Tech Summit. Oh dear. Well, anyway, in any event, I still think, as I say, my personal two favorites are CCUMC as well as just, Infocom in general. CCUMC tends to be a little bit better geared towards higher ed, obviously, through the mouthful of the acronym that it is, but which is Collegiate Consortium of University Media Centers. Don't make me say that 3 times fast. Anyway, but it's one of those ones where it's more geared towards these are the issues or these are the problems, these are the things we want to accomplish. And, you have folks from the industry, both manufacturers and every now and then I think I've seen like 1 or 2 kind of integrators, but I don't know how much you want to, how much splitting hairs you want to do with AVI SPL. Because they seem to kind of be the do it all kind of bit. Yeah. So, Mr. Tyner, your thoughts here?
I actually found this article timely and interesting to me because I've followed Tim and others on Twitter, and I see them traveling to these conferences all the time. And I was recently thinking of I can't believe how many conferences there are, even in just the higher ed world. Some of the smaller regional conferences that people put on, or even colleges put on by themselves. And I think that the article touches on that, the piece well, which is you need to decide the ones that are of value to you and invest your money in those. I'm with you, Bill. I think CCUMC is a great conference. Another one that I tend to go to is EDTech. I think that I like CCUMC because of the networking. People that are there. You feel comfortable talking to people that are there. We did a thing there this year. Was emerging technology. People just sat in a big room, just talked about stuff and shot out answers to this and that.
Cool.
For me, those are the pieces of conferences that I look at. Is I like hearing from people doing the job rather than from vendors or manufacturers, and I like the networking piece.
Yeah, it's the CCUMC. There never really seems to be we're not going to share secrets because, once again, everyone's out to solve a problem. No one's really saying, oh, well, ours is a guarded secret. No, I mean, at worst, it turns into, we came up with our own programming system. Oh, Do you have the copy of Python? Yeah. And here it is. It's not like anyone's going to be out to be making money or driving folks into the poorhouse with these things.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think one of the things we talked about, and Robert mentioned a minute ago, about economic models and the like. And for me, for most of what we do in AV, none of that gives us a competitive advantage, right? That we have working systems in our rooms is not a competitive advantage. I think when you talk about Ernie or some of the hologram stuff you might do, or some distance learning stuff, some of that might give you a competitive advantage. But for the most part, why not share? Giving my programming to somebody else is not going to drive base college out of business.
No, I was going to say, although if Ernie does patent it and all of a sudden we see him one day starting up his own consultant firm, we know what happened.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, listen, Ernie, the moment I see you wearing Versace suits, I'll know what went down.
Yeah, that's right. I agree with Scott. The most important thing at most of these events is the networking, getting to know, your colleagues. And, I have gotten on the phone or email with people that I've met at these conferences, if I have a specific need, or I've gotten requests from them, have you tried doing this? If they're at a similar university that we are, and we'll say, yeah, this is how we did it. And I found some good solutions and shared some solutions that we found that way. And I get that. And then, we actually host a regional, what we call Teaching with Technology Symposium here on our campus every summer. And we started out really just doing it for Central Arkansas. Well, we ended up getting the whole state. Now we have people coming in from the surrounding states, either to present or to see what we're doing, how we're using technology in the classrooms. And, it's not all AV technology. It's whatever may be used for teaching, but AV is a big part of it. And I ended up getting a lot of questions about the technology we actually are using to teach this group. So,
Yeah, one of the things, and Rob will finish it out with you, the smaller shows seem to be more focused because, for one thing, maybe the attendance isn't always as high and everything. But at the same time, it's in that same vein of a smaller show. You can have like a real conversation with the folks and really get into either the product depth, or the person you end up chatting with is sometimes like the actual regional support folks for the product and everything. Case in point for us, I won't lie, Mersive, two of Mersive's folks live like 2 towns over from me. And, if I have a problem with it, it's nice being able to call up the tech support directly as they go, oh, yeah, no, you know what? I can be over there tomorrow. Thankfully, it hasn't actually had to happen so much as it's been more of the, okay, let's get on the phone with your network support folks and wrangle cats and everything. But, Rob, in fact, funny bit, Rob and I actually met at a smaller higher ed tech show.
That's correct. Yeah, and definitely agree. Networking with your colleagues and sharing ideas and setups and all that stuff is definitely the big part of it. And the other part of it is like you said, Bill, you get to meet with some of the vendors and the manufacturers of things that you use. And you get to talk to them directly and, pick their brain, and you make connections. It's actually incredible sometimes how, accessible these people are once you get them face to face. And if you have problems, you talk to them, that kind of thing. And yeah, these things are I hate to say it. I'm going to say it. They're a necessity. They're a necessary. And I'm not even going to say they're an evil. Because, obviously, and it's either sponsored by...
It sounds like this is a vaccination shot.
Yeah, ow. But, either it's sponsored by an institution or a vendor or a manufacturer. But either way, they're all great. And even sometimes you can get into courses which will give you, the points you need to renew your CTS or these kinds of things. So, yeah, they're, whatever level they're at, they're awesome. I mean, like you're saying, there's certain... events and conferences that are better than others, but yeah, to me, it's great.
Let's put it this way: you always end up learning some fun stuff My personal fave has been a couple of years back. There was the NEC showcase, which they hold in Manhattan and everything. And they usually have a variety of partners that are there. And some of them you get some good information. Sometimes you get some information directly from the engineers who, don't exactly have a truth. They don't have a alternate facts filter. And they will go and tell you, oh, yeah, oh, no, that one's not, that's the last of the line. My personal fave at that one was NEC. We said, hey, we really like that projector. Yeah, no, this is the new model. Yeah, okay, cool. Does it have the same RS-232 codes? No, this is the new one. You get this one now. Like, all righty, glad I talked with the engineers. But once again, it's the smaller shows. I think you're right, it's the networking, it's the personal connections and things like that. So it's one of those ones where you can actually have a conversation, like I said, talk with the folks. You can see some stuff where you look and go, that's really cool. You can see some other stuff and you go, that's got to go back in the oven. And sometimes the training location, or sometimes the venues will leave an imprint on you, and I'll just keep it at that, in the fact that I've been to the Hotel Pennsylvania more times than I want to admit to. It's a real gem, but believe me, when you're going there, you're not going there for the ambiance. But anyway, so last but not least on this one, we are wrapping things up at the end of the year. The last thing I do want to chat about with you guys is simply this. When it comes through with your school budgets and everything else, and this is just an easy thing, say for like in our example, they said, oh yeah, there's going to be a budgetary cut. And we said, oh, okay. They're like, can we do value added or value savings or cost savings budgetary discretions? I said, no, we're just going to do less rooms. Because the moment we start hodgepodging them, from both a maintenance perspective and a troubleshooting perspective, it just turns into a patchwork of what. So, guys, is this similar thoughts, similar paths, or?
How do I start this? So yeah, there have been situations where we're told the budget's going to be cut. You got to tighten belts, and that's almost every year for some reason. No, I'm just kidding. And so you do have to make adjustments as far as like you said, Bill. Either you shut down some classrooms, or you cut back on your maintenance, and you pray that the room will make it to the next budget year. That kind of thing. One of the interesting things that happened on our campus is that we were going through some financial challenges, and what was interesting is they came up with this group called Classroom Renovations Group, and they actually invested some money into a fund for general classroom renovation, whether it be AV or construction or stuff like that. Ooh. And actually that was a bit of a lifesaver, that an institution would somehow understand that you need a sort of a discretionary fund to deal with some things that are dealing with your classroom infrastructure. And it wasn't a lot, but it certainly helped. But I mean, unfortunately, you just got to sort of deal with what's thrown at you. And you have to find some creative ways to cut back, whether you cut down some weekend support, or, you cut back on some, equipment that you were planning on purchasing.
In our case, one of the things we ended up doing was we did as I like to put it, the projector cascade. That was the newest. All right, here we're going to refresh a couple of classrooms, but we're going to replace the projector. Oh, look at that! That one's still working. Okay, the next one down on the tier got we've had varying aging projectors and everything. And we've worked it out pretty well. The saving grace has probably been having a on-site programmer who knows how to actually check for correct polling hours and everything. But Scott, Ernie, any budgetary stories of woe, or it's just you roll with the punches?
We've managed to do pretty well. The last two big budget cuts that came across campus, they determined that we were essential, and we weren't touched, including my hardware budget, which really surprised me. I get a fixed amount every year,
Mhm.
And it's kind of interesting. I put the rooms into a rotation. Then we support several different levels of rooms. We have what we call the general purpose education rooms. Those are all the rooms that are centrally scheduled. Maybe College of Pharmacy for 2 hours, College of Medicine the next hour, then College of Nursing. It's shared through the registrar's office. And then we have what we call the enterprise spaces. Those are the big spaces, the chancellor may use or big groups will use for special events. They're available for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And then we support some departmental spaces. The rule we have there is you make it available to the registrar scheduler when your group is not using it, and it's not behind more than one locked door going down a hallway or something.
Mm-hmm.
And the department pays one time to get the room up to what we determine as current technology for them. Whatever levels of presentation they want to give in there. Is it video conference, just single presentation, dual presentation, whatever. We tell them this is what it's going to cost you to upgrade it. And then once they get it upgraded, as long as they keep it on the available to the rest of the campus space, we will put it in our budget for upgrading it, as warranties expire and technology changes. Once they get it to a point, we'll keep it current.
Mm-hmm.
The fun part is I get all that. I get the funding for all of those through the central budget for the campus. But my priorities are set by an academic committee.
Mm-hmm.
So they may come back and we don't think you should be putting money into the departmental rooms or into the enterprise spaces. And we argue the best we can that, we're supposed to be supporting all of it. Yes, the education is our top priority.
We're going to put money into art therapy. What?
Yeah. We've maintained that, and we have, like I said, we have not been hit. And some years I use all the money for the academic spaces. Sometimes I can share it among some of the others, but it still has to be approved by the academic team.
Now, actually, Ernie, I have a question for you on this one. Do you guys have year-to-year budgets, or can budgets from previous years roll over?
If I know ahead of time that a project's going to roll across a budget year,
Mm-hmm.
I can transfer the money into a fund that will roll over. But basically, no, I get it. I have money for 12 months.
That is something that we've been talking about here on campus, and that is. I know it's a riveting subject, but having a rolling budget, it's one of those you look and you go and say, all right, I can do this much this year. And you're right. A lot of times with us, we look and go, okay, we'll buy all the parts for this half of the classroom. And then when, July rolls around, okay, here, we'll put in a rush order and we'll get this all done.
Yeah.
And it's the timing of the two-step, but it's one of those ones where it's like, it's good, but at the same time, like that.
Right. We will buy stuff for the next fiscal year out of the current one if I have money for it, and then we'll start do the install afterwards. It's hard to explain to the folks that we can't control the budget cycle. It starts like yours July 1,
Mm-hmm.
but the academic break, if we have any kind of academic break, it's from May to August. So, it doesn't do any good to tell me my money's available at the 1st of July. Okay, I can now place an order with my vendors on July 1. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to have stuff in on July 15,
Yeah, no,
we order in July for our Christmas renovation.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. All right. Mr. Tyner, any thoughts, words, praises?
Yeah, we're fairly lucky that we haven't had big budget cuts like that. We I think are similar to Ernie. We have a very clear list of every room that we have, what it's going to cost to renovate it. And so what I'm always prepared to do is I'll throw a bunch of classrooms on there, and then I'll throw like the executive boardroom on, and say, if you want to cut money, that's cool. We just want to do the executive boardroom. And, people tend to say, well, oh boy, all right, maybe we'll give you that extra money.
Yeah.
we've as I say, yeah. I'll just keep it to this. We ended up doing something for the president's office, and they said, "Oh, isn't there any cost savings?" And I said, "We were originally budgeted for $10,000. I'm coming in at about $6,000. There's your cost savings." Okay. Anyways, that's all the time we have, gentlemen. Where can the fine folks find you on LinkedIn? And as I say, LinkedIn, some Twitter.
LinkedIn's the best place to find me.
Fair enough. Mr. Raspberry?
Hey, I'm there too.
All right. Mr. Tyner?
LinkedIn, and I try to stay on Twitter. You can find me there as well.
Thank you very much, guys. You can find me on LinkedIn. This has been EdTech, a monthly podcast through AVNation. Once again, this is it.